I equated freedom with money, and not just a little bit of money, a lot of money. For me, I had to become a millionaire, so that became the focus. So I became a motivation junkie, a self-help junkie, a personal development junkie, which means that, of course, I bought all the books and tapes. I read, went to all the seminars, went to all the late night infomercials, watched them, bought all those programs. And by the time I was, I guess, 23, 24 years old, thereabouts, I had over $65,000 worth of the training programs that I had accumulated in the pursuit of that freedom that I wanted, that quest to silence that pain of the fear of that abandonment, to overcome that, to give myself that space, right? Did I have the money? No. Did I have the even some of the success? Well, I was stuck in that cycle where I got excited. I got the next book or the next audio tape program, and it was the cassette programs, not 8-track, but cassette programs way back then. I'd pop it in. I'd get real excited and jacked up with the potential, with the hope that I saw in it, that this time it's going to be different. And you know what? I learned a lot. I got a lot of great insights in there, and a lot of it was groundbreaking. A lot of it was good shit that was, incredible stuff, but it wasn't incredible for me then. And what I mean is that it didn't work for me then, or it only worked temporarily, because I experienced what I call the snapback. And I'm sure that you can relate to this on some level, where we have a modicum of success, and all of a sudden we are starting to see some sort of breakthrough, and it's good for a time, but then it snaps back to the way things were. It's like the yo-yo dieting, right? We lose a little bit of weight, but then we yo-yo back up, and we gain the weight back and more. The people that win the lottery, it's almost cliche now, but 99.9% of the people that have won the lottery are dead broke or worse than dead broke today because they've lost the money that's associated with. That was me. So what I'm getting at is that I got enough of those things to overcome some of the Fred stories through sheer force, sheer willpower. I gritted it out. I muscled it into place. And what ended up happening is that eventually, by the time I was 32, I became a millionaire for the first time. I got it. And it turned me inside out. I mean, it was incredible. And I thought, now I've got the freedom that I want. And it only lasted, again, the feeling of not, of being worthy, of being, finally having made it, only lasted for a little bit by comparison. And I experienced the snapback again, where at first it wasn't in the monetary sense, the material world sense. It was in terms of just how I was feeling inside. I still felt insecure. I still felt like I wasn't doing enough, like I wasn't worthy enough, like I didn't earn enough, or I didn't contribute enough. I didn't make enough of an impact, or there could always be more. And so maybe the answer is that is to have more money, since it's not quieting that pain that I'm feeling, that I'm still don't trust people. I still feel like I'm going to be abandoned. I still feel this pain. None of it's there. None of it's going away. Well, let me do it again. And so I did do it again, and bigger, and set a bigger goal, and I went after it and drove, and I became successful for successful's sake, and for this, driving bigger for the sake of driving bigger. But here's something that even that, achieving those goals didn't matter, didn't even feel as good as the first time that I had that first taste of success. So what was going on? Well, I didn't know this, but again, unconsciously, I had a different Fred story, I guess, running me, because what I did was I sabotaged my success. And so I lost all my money, and I went broke. And then I made it all back again. And somehow the comeback kid, right, that story of the comeback felt even better than doing it the first time, because I overcame it. I was Fred now, and not only did I get stuck in that jar once, but and wrestle my way out, but now I did it again. I'm coming back, and I'm not letting, and so what ended up happening from the time that I became a millionaire the first time to the time that I was 42, when I had, basically a nervous breakdown, a midlife crisis at 42, was that I made and lost millions. When I turned 42, I stopped and I said that this sucks. I'm tired of this snapback. I'm tired of always reverting backwards. It's like, no matter what I do, I can't ever get off this gerbil wheel. And so, yeah, I might have all the toys. I might have the $1 million mansion. I might have experienced what it's like to fly in a private jet, or to rent an island in the British West Indies with some friends at $50,000 a night, and all that, stuff that's, frankly, when I think about it now, is embarrassing. But back then, it was like I wore it as a badge of honor, as a a status symbol, as all this stuff proved, to at least to the outside world, let me pretend that everything was outstanding, that none of my Fred stories were real, and because nobody else knew about them, but I did. The only problem is I didn't know that they were running me. And so that was the beginning of really starting to do some soul searching and look for what are some things that I can do. And I really realized that I wasn't happy, that it wasn't, that I wanted to do something meaningful. And basically, the bottom line was that I realized, and maybe you can relate, I don't know if you can or not, but for me, I knew that I was supposed to be more, that I was supposed to do more, that I was supposed to make a bigger impact, create more value in the world for myself and for the world at large than I was doing right then. Like my whole focus was just about the money, just about, driving for more and bigger and setting bigger goals. So I became this motivation junkie, as this product of the self-help industry. And when I say motivation junkie, what I mean is that I'm looking for the next thing that's going to give me that booster shot in the arm, that's going to charge me up, that's going to take me to the next level. The problem was that it was only temporary, that it always snapped back. And so when I decided to do some soul searching and shut my entire business operations down, I had several companies running and several businesses, and I shut everything down for two reasons. One, I wanted to do something that would be inspiring and meaningful for the rest of my life, that was going to make the impact and make the meaningful impact that I could be proud of, and so that I could know that I'm, not having regrets, that I'm not dying with regrets, that I'm also doing what I'm supposed to do and leaving it all out there, so to speak. That was number one. Number two was what I now know are my Fred stories, recognize them, and so that what I didn't know then, but I now have come to realize, is that it's not enough to just, if you ignore Fred, he doesn't go away. He's still in there. He's still got the conditioning in there. And so you can overpower Fred, and you can work really hard, but that requires force, that requires effort. And so I wanted to figure out a way. I didn't know that I now have the benefit of hindsight looking back on it over the last 10, 11 years. I now know that what I was really looking to do was to recognize what these Fred stories are and dissolve them. And because if I dissolved them on any subject, and we all have Fred stories, which are unconscious conditioning that we didn't choose, that isn't necessarily serving us. In fact, I would define a Fred story as it's not helping what we want to have happen. So if we want to get unstuck on any particular subject, if we want something that we don't yet have right now in our experience, we're stuck, right? And we want to get unstuck. We want to go for something that we want. And if we are not seeing the results, if we're not able to get there, or we don't stay there, we have some sort of a Fred story that's been unconsciously conditioning us, working against us getting unstuck on the subject, working against us getting what we want to have happen in life. And so what I now know, and what the whole purpose behind the ion stuck technology that I haven't seen anywhere else, at least in this fashion, is how do we R&D our Fred stories, which is recognize that they're going on a particular subject, and how do we dissolve them? Because if they are simply no longer there, well then all that information, all that knowledge, all that learning, all that effort, all those different things that I tried, which now are well over $1.5 million, if not $2 million worth of training and programs and different things that I've educated myself and consumed over the last, since I was like 8 years old, so last 40-something years of my life. If I don't have a Fred story there that's working against me, and I'm now able to allow the flow to happen, if I can focus on it, now it's easy. It becomes the path of least resistance. It becomes a downstream feeling instead of struggling for it and working for it, because I'm not having to overpower the Fred story to get where I want to go, if that makes sense. That's the whole purpose behind the ion stuck technology, and why I call it a technology and why I believe it's revolutionary is because it's all about how I can, in myself first and foremost, I did it for me, to recognize, to R&D my Fred stories, to recognize that the Fred stories are going on when they happen, that they're unconsciously taking me, the unconscious conditioning that I've allowed to be put in place are somehow limiting what I want to have happen on a particular subject. Recognize it first and make the unconscious conscious, and then dissolve that Fred story. I don't have to willpower, I don't have to grit it. I can allow the Fred story to dissolve, and that's the whole core of what this community is all about. That's what the mission here is to work right there. Because I don't know if there's 1,000 people just like me, but I'm sure it's more like 1 billion people just like me that are frustrated because no matter how hard they work at something, no matter what program they do, if you don't deal with the Fred stories that are sitting in here, controlling you, then it doesn't matter how hard you work. You can work 18 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever, to overcome that, to sheer force of will and to do it and and it doesn't matter if you've got Fred working against you, because eventually you can't ever take a break. You're going to burn out no matter what, because the instant Fred never takes a break. You don't hear Fred sometimes because you're so busy over here, but the instant that you're tired because you have to work so hard, you take a break, what happens? It snaps back the other way. And boom, you're right back where you were or thereabouts. And so you find yourself coming into that same brick wall again and again and again. And so that's why we've got to R&D Fred for you. We've got to recognize what Fred's you've got going on, what Fred stories you have, and we've got to dissolve them away. Now, I love to tell you that I'm this enlightened being and I have this all down and I do this perfectly in myself. The fact of the matter is that I'm still working on this. I am not this guru, sitting on the mountain. That this is about a community. It's about, like-minded weirdos like me teaming up and standing for one another, having a place to call home where we can work on this together. Because I'll let you in on a little secret. It's a whole lot easier for me to see your Fred stories and point them out to you, and for you to see my Fred stories and point them out to me, because we're most blind. You're not blind to my unconsciousness. I'm not blind to yours. But we are until we learn how to do it and we start to get into the habit. And I've gotten pretty good at being able to recognize it and coach myself on it. But it doesn't mean that I've eliminated all my Fred stories, that I've dissolved them all. I haven't. For me, what's meaningful is to bring this body of work, these tools, these resources, this technology really, to the masses and evolve it with you. And to work together with you to do that. It's not this hard work that I used to think, it's going to take a long time. I got to really work on this, and I got to work on my shit, and I got to really do it. What I was really doing is reliving my Fred stories instead of dissolving them, instead of releasing them. and you know, buying into that limitation rather than actually working on dissolving them and allowing them to dissolve. And so that's the whole purpose of why I started this community and what we're all about here, and what I'm doing with all of the particular trainings and content and different pieces that we're putting together here is to help us R&D Fred and making it easy and tapping into that technology, tapping into the dissolving, why it's not about eradicating it, it's not about beating it up, it's about dissolving it, allowing it to be dissolved. And I'll let you know a little secret. Once you actually physically or mentally can see your Fred story to any degree, it automatically starts to dissolve because you're making the unconscious conscious by focusing on it. Anyway, more about that when we start digging into some of the particulars of how to do it, and some of the case studies that I have for you.